Welcome to Right on the Money, the weekly talk show with interviews you can use to help you maximize your money and optimize your financial future. Before moving forward with any of the ideas discussed on the show, always consult your financial advisor, insurance professional, or tax consultant. Looking for financial help or a second opinion? We can help you in your search. And now, your host of Right on the Money, syndicated financial columnist and money-colored commentator, Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone to our special event on the basics of estate planning with attorney Elizabeth Westby. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
I'm going to tell you something, everybody, especially boomers, and I'm one of them, we are just not doing our job here. We're just getting into retirement planning, just now. And think about this, 60% of most boomers don't even have a retirement plan, much less some kind of estate plan. Now, I think there's a misconception out here. I'm going to ask you straight out. It seems like people say, well, estate planning is for the rich, people who are really affluent. The normal person, middle-class America, we need a will, yeah, but beyond that, there's really nothing there. And I've seen some of the stuff you wrote. I read a couple of your blogs on your website. It seems like, that's not the case.
No, it's not. Actually, it's the biggest misconception people have. And I think that's because people don't want to think about it or talk about the subject. But especially baby boomers should be paying attention to this. And it's really because they're the sandwich generation, meaning they are responsible for not just themselves, but even their ailing parents, their children, and their grandchildren. So this gives an opportunity for a lot to go wrong. And if there are less assets, it's more important to make sure they're going into the right places by going ahead and making your plan.
Now, you just said we're the sandwich generation. I have to agree. I mean, we're picking up the tab for mom and dad's LTC, long-term care. We're still paying college tuition. We're trying to bless our grandkids, and we have no money in retirement.
That's true.
So, that's bottom line. Our generation is really, I love that. That's a sandwich generation. Now, we're talking about the importance of planning. Now, we're just becoming awakened to the importance of retirement planning. How can I make this work for both? Well, I'm already going to be doing a retirement plan. I might as well just get this done.
Absolutely. I think that that's a really good time to look at it because you're already going through the steps with your financial planner and hopefully your insurance agent. You might as well go ahead and select your attorney and get your plan done and done the way that you want it, right? That works with your circumstances because every plan is so specific to the individual. You don't want something out of a box. And also, you don't want to wait and let the state laws rule what determines the outcome of your plan.
Oh no, I want the government completely out of it. Now, so you're talking about control.
Right.
We're talking about avoiding guardianship for children. We're talking about health care directives.
Even avoiding guardianships for yourself in your later years in life. If you write a plan correctly through a trust, you can effectively avoid any guardianship conservatorship needs and make sure that your plan's working for you the way that you intended it to.
Well, now I've been in a few estate plans, the disposition of assets, and I have to say there's been a lot of heartache between beneficiaries because certain objects, grandma's antique furniture that's worth thousands, it's not divisible enough to separate between different children, and nobody made a choice or an election at the time that occurred.
Well, that's right, and I think the hardest part, people that don't understand how it's going to work is they think, well, it's fine, my kids get along, when I pass away, there's some money, but it's really these personal belongings that are important. Well, how do you split a piano? It's like Prince, he passed away, he has $300 million in assets, but then he has all this beautiful music and the music rights. How do you split the rights to music? How do you split all of those assets? So I think that's something that people miss the boat on, but really should be considering and making sure that they write that down. And then, of course, it's telling your family about it, right? So there's no unexpected surprises at the end of the day.
Well, interesting on Prince. They just went to court today. They let the games begin.
They did.
So here we go. Now, when we're talking about regular planning, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to list everything I have, all my assets, everything from my qualified plans to my regular monies to my home, second home, whatever I have, it's all going to be there, including, again, the disposition of things like mom's jewelry, her antiques, dad's, the one I have is the Steins, the beer Stein collection. It's great. Right. It looks wonderful, but who's going to get it? And especially if you only have one or two children, maybe there's not that big a hassle. But I don't know, seems like when you have more children and multiple generations, there's a lot to play here.
Well, I think that it's not just necessarily the number of children, but because today our families are not built the traditional way, right? A lot of families are in their second marriages, they're stepchildren. there are people that you would consider a family member who are not a blood relative. So then it becomes very important to name them specifically. And then at the end of the day, if you only have 2 children, and let's say one is doing very well for him or herself, and the other one not so much, you don't want to forget to actually name that first child, even if you don't think they need the help, because it becomes an emotional gift at that point. It becomes something more than just the document and the assets being split.
Well, I'm thinking that the first major estate that I was involved in was $20 million. It was here in Phoenix. And my agent spoke, and I was there as the backup substantial legal authority on a few ideas. And I said to the female component of the married couple, I said, and we'll disperse all your assets equally to every child. And she says, no, you won't. And I said, well, now, why would you say that? She goes, because little Johnny's not getting anything. Well, apparently, we have a problem here. So you could dictate from the grave, if behavior didn't change, if I'm hearing some of the ways you've talked before, you could dictate from the grave, hey, maybe if you haven't cleaned up your life or so forth, you may be cut out or reduced assets given to you.
Absolutely. That's one of the benefits. It's not necessarily something that people look on as being nice, but it's one of the protections and that control that you can have, because you don't want to leave your assets up to chance and then they going to that child or that niece or that nephew who maybe did some things that were unforgivable in the family, in your opinion. So you might as well have that control even from the grave.
Now, when you're choosing people you trust, I mean, I would imagine blood is a big deal, your family. You're looking for somebody, one of the children, somebody has responsibility, understands, will be able to manage disputes if there's between siblings. I'm just imagining that's where but friends don't have standing, basically, in these kind of deals, do they?
Absolutely not. And I think that becomes more important and pertinent when you're looking at young families. So if a young family, if a young couple with children were to pass away, a lot of times I'm finding that these families don't necessarily have those directives. They haven't named their guardian for their children. The guardian named for your child is going to be a soft, kind, loving person, someone who can raise your child. But that may not be the same person that you trust to manage the money for your children. The trustee or the person managing the money may have a completely different set of skills. It's important for you to name these people. You could, in effect, if you were to pass away with your loved one, your children could end up going to that sister who you never imagined in years would be taking care of your child, and you don't really agree with perhaps her lifestyle.
Is there a difference between getting a guardianship for myself when I'm incapacitated and healthcare directive, who's going to call the shots on my medical? Is that the same person, or it could be 2 different people?
It could be 2 different people. It just depends. I think I've seen that a lot of people in their medical directives, they want to make sure this person understands their heart feelings, how they view lifestyle, even religion comes into effect. How far do you want the doctors to go? Do you believe in a morphine drip? There's a lot of religions who don't. They don't believe in that. So this could be a completely different person. And then of course your general or your durable power of attorney, that person who manages your money, is going to be oftentimes different than your medical power of attorney for the same reason.
You may need a little team here.
Absolutely. It's all about making your choices, unless you want those choices to be left up to the courts, the law.
No. I think most Americans, when they're faced with this, nobody wants to do about end-of-life planning. Nobody's into it. I mean, it's just nobody talks about death. It's depressing. So, but they also, but greater than that, fear, greater than that hassle is the government making the selection for you. So I think if we need an impetus or a little bit of motivation, that to me should be the big one.
Absolutely. I think that is one of the biggest motivators. And people, once they become educated on why that's so important, because of what could happen, and Prince coming back to us is a great example. And that's a big lesson for all of us. Of course, it's on a huge scale that most of us aren't living by, but it's a perfect example on what can happen. He's a private person, private individual. I mean, I remember seeing this guy on stage on a television program when I was a kid, and he would run off because he refused to do interviews after the show. Someone that private. Now, everything he had is so public knowledge, and we're only in the beginning. It's really going to be up to the individual to make those choices.
Well, remember, if you're listening to our show on radio, iTunes, or a podcast, You can view our video version online at rightonthemoneyshow.com and request information right from this segment.
For more information on this week's money topics, just go to our website at www.rightonthemoneyshow.com and follow Steve's daily postings on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. When it comes to retirement, money management, small business, insurance coverage, college funding, or budgeting, we have the interviews you can use.